I was so shocked when my own parents told me I didn't belong at my cousin's wedding, so I walked in anyway. And when I danced with the groom's father, every single person in that room finally turned to watch me. I never thought the people who gave me life could make me feel like a ghost at my own family's table. But that's exactly what my parents managed to do. The day the wedding invitation came, the golden envelope looked almost royal. Silk ribbon, wax seal, the whole display of wealth and taste. My mother held it in her hand as if it were a crown. "It's from Lily," she said, her tone dripping with pride. My cousin Lily, the golden child of the family, the one who could do no wrong. She was marrying into money, of course. A lawyer from one of those families that donated to charities just to have their names engraved on plaques. When my mother read the invitation out loud, I realized something was off. It was addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Thompson and family. My heart hesitated, waiting for a flicker of warmth in her eyes. A glance that said, "See, Emma, you're invited too." But it never came. She simply folded it neatly and placed it on the counter. "Are we all going?" I asked, forcing casual curiosity. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. "Lily's wedding isn't the kind of place you'd be comfortable at." I frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" My mother sighed, the kind of sigh that carried years of disappointment. "Emma, you've been distant from everyone. You didn't finish college, you're still figuring things out, and, well, these are successful people. We don't want to make anyone uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. The word echoed in my head like a slap. My parents always measured worth in degrees and appearances. And since I'd chosen a different path, leaving business school halfway through to study dance and work part-time to support myself, I'd become their quiet embarrassment. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream that I wasn't ashamed of who I was, that I had dreams worth chasing. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. They saw me as a disappointment wrapped in flesh and blood. Their daughter, yes, but one who had fallen out of the perfect family portrait. For a few days, I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I wouldn't go. But then I saw the photos Lily posted online. The engagement ring glinting like starlight, the caption full of love and promises, the comments gushing about how perfect she was. I felt something twist inside me. Not jealousy, not exactly. It was more like a reminder of everything I'd been denied: belonging, pride, family. So I made a decision. I was going. I didn't have money for a designer dress, and I certainly couldn't show up in the worn clothes I used for teaching dance classes. I called my friend Zoe, who'd always been my partner in crime. "You have that soft blue gown from last year's gala, right?" I asked. Zoe hesitated. "Emma, are you sure you want to walk into that lion's den?" "I'm done hiding," I said. "I just want to be seen." 2 days later, I stood in front of the mirror, wearing that very dress. It wasn't expensive, but it flowed beautifully, like calm water around my legs. My hair fell in soft curls, and my makeup was simple but elegant. For the first time in months, I looked like I belonged somewhere. The wedding was held at the Grand Sterling Hotel, a place where even the doormen looked too polished to exist in real life. The ballroom shimmered with gold and ivory decor, roses spilling from crystal vases, and violins playing in the background. As I walked in, I felt 100 eyes flick toward me. I could almost hear their thoughts. "What is she doing here?" My mother spotted me first. Her smile froze mid-sentence. My father turned his head slightly, as though I were a stain on the otherwise flawless evening. My cousin Lily was across the room, radiant in her gown, glowing under the chandeliers. She looked like the kind of woman fairy tales were written for. I approached my parents slowly. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." My mother's jaw tightened. "Emma," she said through her perfect red lips. "Why are you here?" "I was invited," I lied, pretending confidence I didn't feel. Her eyes flicked toward the guest list in her mind. "You weren't." My father cleared his throat. "We thought you'd understand that this isn't the best place for you." The word stung, but I smiled anyway. "Don't worry. I'm not here to ruin anything. I just wanted to wish Lily happiness." Then I walked away before they could answer. The night unfolded like a cruel play. Every laugh, every whisper, every glance seemed to orbit around me. I could feel the pity of strangers, the quiet ridicule of relatives. One woman from my mother's bridge club whispered loudly enough for me to hear. "She's the one who dropped out of business school, right?" Such a shame. I forced a polite smile and excused myself to the corner near the dessert table. I felt small, like a shadow in a room full of light. Yet beneath the humiliation there was something else burning quietly inside me. Defiance. I didn't belong in their world? Fine, but I wouldn't let them see me crumble. I took a slow breath and scanned the crowd. Lily was dancing with her new husband, and the room filled with applause. They looked perfect together, but even from here I could see the calculation in her smile, the rehearsed charm. I wondered if she even knew how much my parents had done for her. How many times they'd said, "Why can't you be more like Lily?" As the night went on, I found a small table near the window. The city lights twinkled below like scattered diamonds. For a moment I thought about leaving. I could slip out quietly, call Zoe, and laugh about it later. But something in me refused to walk away unseen. I had come here to face them, and I wasn't done yet. Then came the sound that changed everything. A low, warm voice behind me said, "You look too beautiful to be hiding here alone." I turned, startled. A tall man stood there, probably in his mid-50s, dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His presence was calm, confident, commanding, without arrogance. His silver hair gleamed under the ballroom lights, and his blue eyes carried a kind of gentleness I hadn't seen all evening. "I'm sorry," I said quickly, unsure what else to say. He smiled. "No need to be. I'm Thomas Harrison, the groom's father, of course. The father of Lily's new husband, a man from the family my cousin had married into." I froze, trying to remember the right etiquette. "Oh, I'm Emma, Lily's cousin." His expression softened. "Ah, yes. I've heard a little about you." I bit back a bitter laugh. "I'm sure you have." He chuckled, as if he could read the sarcasm. "You know, I noticed something. Everyone in this room is smiling, but only half of them mean it. You're one of the few who looks real." His words caught me off guard. No one in my family had ever described me that way. Real. They used other words, difficult, stubborn, and emotional, but never real. "Thank you," I said, unsure how else to respond. He gestured toward the ballroom floor where couples were dancing. "Do you dance?" The irony almost made me laugh. Do I dance? It was my entire life, but I hesitated. "I do. But I don't think my family would appreciate me stealing the spotlight." He grinned. "Well, luckily I don't care what your family thinks." There was something in his tone, not flirtatious, but kind. Protective almost. "Come on," he said, offering his hand. "Dance with me." They've all had their turn pretending. Let's give them something real to look at. I looked at his hand, then at the faces around me. My mother was watching from across the room, her expression thunderous. My father looked like he might faint. A part of me wanted to shrink away, to keep the peace. But another part, the one that had been silenced for years, whispered, "Do it." So I took his hand. As we stepped onto the floor, the music swelled. A slow, graceful melody. His hand was steady on my back, guiding me effortlessly. I could feel every eye on us, every breath caught in disbelief. My mother's lips parted in shock. Lily's groom looked almost nervous. Mr. Harrison smiled down at me. "You dance beautifully," he said softly. I met his gaze. "It's what I love most," he nodded. "Then keep doing it, no matter who tells you not to." Something inside me loosened, a knot that had been there for years. The rest of the room faded. It was just the music, his guiding steps, and the quiet knowledge that I was finally seen. When the song ended, applause erupted, polite at first, then genuine. I curtsied slightly, heart racing. My mother looked furious. My father avoided eye contact. But I smiled, because for the first time in my life, I didn't care. I walked back to the edge of the room, my head high, my pulse steady. I didn't belong to them anymore. Not their expectations, not their disappointment. I belonged to myself, And though I didn't know it yet, that dance was only the beginning, the spark that would change everything that followed. The music pulsed softly through the golden-lit ballroom, and I stood there, heart thudding, as Mr. Harrison's hand remained outstretched toward me. Every instinct I had, every childhood lesson drilled into me by my mother about not making scenes, screamed for me to refuse. But something deeper, fiercer, and older than fear moved my hand before my mind could stop it. My fingers slipped into his, and warmth shot up my arm like lightning. He led me toward the dance floor, and the sea of bodies seemed to part on its own. Conversations dimmed. The soft hum of gossip was replaced by a curious hush. The band shifted into a slow, melodic tune, one of those timeless waltzes that made you feel like every step carried history. Mr. Harrison placed one hand gently on my waist, not possessive, not improper, but steady. The kind of touch that said, "You're safe here. Breathe," he murmured. "Let the music do the talking." And for the first time that night, I did. I inhaled deeply, feeling the rhythm slip into my bones. As we began to move, I remembered why I had fallen in love with dance in the first place. It wasn't about performance or perfection. It was about liberation. Every twirl, every sway was a rebellion against the world that told me I wasn't enough. I could feel the eyes of the entire room on me, burning like stage lights. My mother's frozen smile, my father's stiff jaw, Lily's stunned silence, they all melted into the blur of chandeliers. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to please them. I wasn't trying to fit in. I was simply being Mr. Harrison's presence was grounding. He was surprisingly graceful, leading me with quiet confidence. "You dance beautifully," he whispered, as if afraid to break the spell. I smiled faintly. "It's what I've always loved. My parents never really approved," he nodded. "Families have a strange way of burying the best parts of us." His words hit deeper than I expected. My chest tightened, and I blinked rapidly to keep from showing emotion. I didn't want pity. I wanted to stand tall. So I lifted my chin and we spun once more, this time faster, bolder. A small murmur rippled through the crowd. Then applause, faint at first, hesitant like they weren't sure what they were clapping for. But as the song swelled and our movements synchronized perfectly, the rhythm caught them. When the final note faded, the applause came louder, genuine, surprising even me. I stepped back, breathing hard, cheeks flushed, and for a second, I felt like the room belonged to me. Mr. Harrison bowed slightly, smiling. "Now that's how you make an entrance," I laughed, though my voice trembled. "Or an enemy," he tilted his head. "Maybe, but the right kind." The next moment was chaos wrapped in politeness. Lily's new husband approached us, smiling, though there was tension in his eyes. "Well," he said, clapping Mr. Harrison on the shoulder, "that was unexpected." "Unexpected things are often the most beautiful," Mr. Harrison replied smoothly. My mother arrived seconds later, her perfume cutting through the air like sharp citrus. Her voice was low, deadly. "Emma, what on earth do you think you're doing?" I turned to her, my heart still racing. "Dancing." "This is not the time to make a spectacle of yourself," she hissed, glancing around. "You're embarrassing us." Before I could respond, Mr. Harrison stepped slightly closer, his voice calm but firm. She didn't embarrass anyone. In fact, she reminded everyone why these events used to mean something. Grace, authenticity, joy. My mother blinked, caught off guard. It was probably the first time someone had ever defended me in front of her. I savored the moment silently. After a tense pause, she forced a brittle smile. "Of course, how lovely." Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Mr. Harrison leaned in and said quietly, "I hope I didn't make things worse." I shook my head. "No, you just showed me what it feels like to be treated like a person." He smiled gently. "Then I'd call that a win." We spent the next hour talking between dances, not as strangers, but as two people who had quietly survived their own storms. He told me about his late wife, a woman who had loved painting but gave it up for family expectations. She used to say that some people live small so others can feel big, he said. I think she would have liked you. That simple sentence did something strange to me. It broke me open and stitched me back together at the same time. I told him about my life, my unfinished degree, my tiny apartment, my late-night teaching gigs at the community studio. He listened without interruption, without judgment. No one had ever done that. Not my parents, not my so-called friends. At one point, he looked toward my mother, who was busy pretending I didn't exist. You know, he said thoughtfully, some people build cages out of expectations and call it love. The trick is learning to recognize the difference. I followed his gaze. My parents were laughing with the other guests again, their smiles wide and false. I realized then that I could never go back to being their quiet disappointment. Something inside me had changed tonight, permanently. When the cake was cut and the champagne flowed, I stepped out onto the terrace for air. The cool night wind brushed against my skin, carrying the faint hum of the band from inside. For a while, I just stared at the city lights below, thinking about how small I'd felt my whole life, and how, for the first time, I felt infinite. I didn't notice Mr. Harrison join me until he spoke. You remind me of myself when I was younger, he said softly. I laughed lightly. I doubt that. Oh, it's true, he said. I used to do everything to please my father. Tried to fit into a world that didn't really see me. Took me years to realize I was living someone else's life. His words felt like an echo of my own story. I looked at him, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. How did you stop? He smiled wistfully. One day I just stopped asking for permission. That line stayed with me. Stopped asking for permission. We stood in silence for a moment, the cool air heavy with understanding. Then he said, Emma, you have talent. I saw it in the way you danced. And courage, even if you don't see it yet. Don't waste that trying to prove your worth to people who can't see it. I swallowed hard. You sound like someone who's seen a lot, he chuckled. Enough to know when someone deserves better. When we went back inside, I could feel the shift in the air. The people who'd whispered about me earlier now smiled politely. Some even congratulated me for such a lovely dance. My cousin Lily approached me with that same polished grin. Emma, you were amazing out there, she said, her tone sweet but careful. I didn't know you could dance like that. I forced a smile. I didn't know you cared. Her smile faltered for a split second, and I saw something I hadn't before. Not kindness, not sisterly affection, but insecurity. For once, she wasn't the center of attention, and she hated it. The night carried on, and I danced once more. Not for show, not for revenge, but for freedom. Every spin felt like a declaration. I exist, I matter. I belong. As the final song played, Mr. Harrison caught my eye from across the room and raised his glass slightly. It wasn't flirtation, it was respect, acknowledgement. Two people who understood what it meant to be outcasts in their own circles. When the event finally ended, and guests began to leave, my parents approached me near the exit. My mother's tone was brittle, her words rehearsed. You really shouldn't have come, she said quietly. People will talk. I looked her dead in the eye. Let them. My father tried to smooth things over. You caused quite a scene, Emma. Dancing with the groom's father of all people, I interrupted, calm but sharp. I didn't cause a scene. I reminded people that being unseen isn't the same as being insignificant. He blinked, unsure how to respond. My mother opened her mouth, but before she could speak, I stepped past them and out the door. Outside, the night was quiet, except for the distant sound of laughter from inside the ballroom. I inhaled deeply, the cold air grounding me. Behind me, the golden doors closed with a soft thud, like the final punctuation of a chapter I didn't need anymore. As I walked away, my heels clicking against the marble steps, I felt lighter than I had in years. I didn't know where my life was heading next, but for the first time, I was the one writing it. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this wasn't just the end of one evening. It was the beginning of my reckoning, because they told me I didn't belong. But I had just danced in the center of their world. and they couldn't unsee me now. The ballroom was thinning out as the night deepened, but the air still shimmered with the residue of whispers and music. My pulse had finally slowed after the whirlwind of the dance, yet my mind refused to settle. I kept replaying it. The stunned faces, the hush that fell over the room, the soft tremor in my mother's voice when she said I didn't belong there. That phrase, cruel and familiar, echoed in my chest like a wound that hadn't healed. I was standing near the dessert table, staring blankly at the untouched slices of cake, when I felt a presence beside me. "Emma?" Mr. Harrison's voice came softly, breaking through the noise. I turned to see him holding 2 glasses of champagne, offering one to me. "You looked like you needed this more than anyone." I smiled faintly and accepted it. "Thank you. Though I should probably avoid any more attention tonight." He chuckled. "Attention isn't always a bad thing, you know. Especially when it's earned." His words warmed me more than the champagne. For a few moments we stood in comfortable silence, watching the last of the guests mingle and laugh under the chandeliers. Then he looked at me, his expression thoughtful. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me that without judgment or condescension. I hesitated before answering, staring into the glass in my hand. "You could say that. My parents have a very specific definition of success. I didn't fit it." He nodded slowly. "They wanted control." I laughed softly, bitterly. "They wanted perfection. I was supposed to be the daughter who married well, followed the family plan, and kept their reputation spotless. Instead, I chose to dance. They said I'd regret it." He tilted his head. "Do you?" "Every time I look at them, maybe a little. But when I'm on a stage, or when I teach a child how to move to music, never." Mr. Harrison smiled then, a deep, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You remind me of someone. My late wife, Evelyn. She was an artist, too. She painted like the world depended on it. Her parents called it a waste of potential." I looked at him with quiet curiosity. "What happened to her?" "She married me anyway," he said with a wistful grin. "And she built a life full of color. Before she passed, she made me promise something, that I'd help others who were told they weren't enough." He paused, his gaze lingering on me. "That's why I started the Evelyn Harrison Arts Foundation. We fund scholarships, dance programs, and community events. We need someone to help lead it. Someone with passion and fire." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard correctly. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying," he interrupted gently, "that I'd like you to consider working with us. You'd be perfect for it." For a moment, the world went still. My throat tightened. "Mr. Harrison, I don't even know what to say." "Say yes," he said simply, eyes glinting with kindness. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. "Are you sure? You barely know me?" "Oh, I know enough," he replied. "I know courage when I see it. And I know talent when it stands in the middle of a ballroom and makes the whole world stop to watch." I laughed shakily, unable to hide my emotion. It wasn't just a job offer. It was validation. A door that had always been slammed in my face was suddenly wide open. But the night wasn't done with its revelations. As word quietly spread, as gossip always does, heads began to turn. My cousin Lily's mother, with her perfectly sculpted smile, whispered to my mother. My mother's face drained of color as she looked in my direction. I could almost see the calculations flickering behind her eyes, the desperate need to rewrite the story, to take back control. A few minutes later, she approached me. Her usual poise cracked around the edges. "Emma," she said, her tone forced into gentleness. "Can we talk?" I turned to face her, feeling strangely calm. "Of course, Mother. What would you like to say?" She smoothed a non-existent wrinkle on her dress. "About earlier. We may have been too harsh. You know, we just wanted what's best for you." I almost laughed. "You wanted what looked best. There's a difference." Her expression faltered. "That's not fair. We only worried about you." "Worried that I'd embarrass you?" I asked softly. "That I'd walk into a room full of people like this and not fit in?" Her lips parted, but no words came. My father joined her, his voice low, almost pleading. "Emma, let's not do this here. People are watching. I smiled coldly. They've been watching all night, haven't they? Maybe it's time they saw the truth. My mother's jaw tightened. Please don't make a scene. But it wasn't a scene, it was closure. I placed my half-finished glass on the table and looked at them both, my voice steady. For years you told me I didn't belong, that my choices were a mistake. Tonight, the only reason anyone's talking about this family is because of the daughter you tried to erase. Her face reddened, but she said nothing. My father's eyes darted to the people nearby, panic blooming in them. Emma, this isn't the place. It's exactly the place, I interrupted quietly. Because this is where you told me I didn't belong. But look around, Dad. The people who once whispered about me are shaking my hand now. My words hung heavy between us. Then I saw movement behind them. Mr. Harrison was walking toward me again, his expression calm but protective. Everything all right here? He asked gently, though his eyes flicked sharply to my parents. Yes, I said with a small, confident smile. Everything's perfect. He nodded, understanding. Good. I wanted to introduce you to a few people from the foundation before I leave. They'd love to meet you. My mother blinked rapidly, caught between pride and disbelief. You're serious about offering her a job? Mr. Harrison's smile was polite but firm. I don't make empty gestures, Mrs. Thompson. Your daughter has the kind of spirit we need. You should be very proud. It was almost painful watching her face crumble. She opened her mouth as if to respond, but no words came. I felt a flicker of pity, but only for a moment. Then I realized something. For the first time in my life, I didn't need her approval. As Mr. Harrison led me across the room, the whispers changed again. People who had looked at me with pity now smiled with interest. The tide had turned, and I hadn't lifted a single finger, just my chin. The foundation team, a group of kind-faced professionals, greeted me warmly. They spoke about plans for youth workshops, art exhibits, and partnerships with schools. The more I listened, the more alive I felt. Every word reminded me that the world I'd been shut out of was now within reach, not through family connections, but through my own resilience. Before we parted ways, Mr. Harrison shook my hand. You've got my number, he said. Call me tomorrow. Let's start building something beautiful. Thank you, I said, my voice breaking slightly. For everything, he smiled. Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing. Never let anyone tell you where you belong again. When he left, I lingered by the exit for a moment, looking back at the ballroom that had once made me feel small. My parents stood in the corner, surrounded by guests who were no longer paying attention to them. Lily was at the far end of the room, her flawless smile gone, her husband whispering something that made her glance toward me with thinly veiled envy. I turned away before I could feel anything more. Outside, the night air was cool and cleansing. The city lights glittered across the hotel's glass facade like scattered dreams. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence wrap around me. My reflection in the glass didn't look like the same woman who had walked in earlier. That girl had been uncertain, seeking permission to exist. The one staring back now knew she didn't need anyone's validation. My phone buzzed, a message from Zoe. How did it go? Did they survive? I smiled as I typed back, better than that. I finally did. As I waited for my car, a memory surfaced. Me as a child, standing in front of a mirror, pretending to waltz with an imaginary partner. My mother scolding me for wasting time. Stop dreaming, Emma, she'd said. You'll never belong anywhere if you keep chasing nonsense. And yet, here I was. Dancing had saved me. When my ride arrived, I looked up at the glowing hotel one last time. Through the wide glass windows, I could still see the remnants of the celebration. People laughing, music echoing faintly. Somewhere in there, my parents were realizing that the daughter they'd cast aside was no longer theirs to control. I smiled to myself, whispering into the night. You told me I didn't belong. But tonight, I proved that I do. Everywhere you said I wouldn't. As the car pulled away, the lights of the city blurred into a soft golden glow. My heart felt strangely weightless, like I was finally stepping into a life that had always been waiting just beyond the edge of fear. I didn't know what would come next, the job, the challenges, the new faces, but I knew one thing for certain. This was my beginning, not my ending, and as I watched the ballroom disappear behind me, I realized that revenge didn't always come in the form of anger or spite. Sometimes the sweetest revenge was simply living beautifully and letting the people who doubted you watch from the sidelines, too late to join the dance.